Good morning. Welcome to Smart Social Secrets with Cami Hoyza and today Phil Mershon. How are you doing, Phil?
I'm doing amazing. Thanks for having me.
I hope that this interview is going to be unforgettable because you have written an unforgettable book about experiences and doing live events. And so I'm really excited about that because you know that I do a lot of live events. And so I read your book with great interest and I took notes and I took notes on all your bread bites. You are the director of experience for Social Media Examiner. If you guys do not know what that is, it's the top publication for public relations and social media. I would say social media mostly. And he is also the director of social media marketing world, meaning he is the guy behind the event. And that event has been going on, I think it was like 13 years now. Like, how long have you guys been doing
We
that?
just had our 11th back in February.
11. Yes. So it's been going a long time. And everybody who is in social media goes to San Diego to partake in your amazing events. And I was there this year, and I will attest that it was an amazing event. It was absolutely amazing event. So how do you do it, Phil? How do you do it?
Well, that's the secret sauce. But I guess since this is the secret show, we need to reveal a few of the secrets, huh?
Just you.
So, yeah, it's thoughtfulness. I mean, what I like to say, and I think you know this, Cami, the
Mhm.
difference between a good and a great event is in the details. And I know we're going to dig into the
Yeah.
analogy of baking, but it's just the perfect way to explain this. If you had a 12-year-old daughter, I would say none, but most boys don't have interest in this. You can teach her to bake a loaf of bread. You can give her the recipes, you can show her the process, and with a little bit of oversight, it will be an edible loaf of bread. But it's not going to be unforgettable. It's not going to be memorable. You've got to put in your proverbial 10,000 hours to become the artisan baker that can create that. So I think the secret really is in the details, but it's in knowing what details to pay attention to.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you because I feel like that's something that we as practitioners in our art, whatever that is, have to put that time in. We have to put that thoughtfulness in. And coming to one of your events, I will just say that you roll out that experience from the first second people walk through the door. There's people greeting you, they're cheering you on, actually, which is kind of weird but cool in a way, and
Yeah.
they're giving you the feeling that you are where you're supposed to be.
Yes.
What
Yeah, I
what
think
made you
that's
think of that? And they're all volunteers for the most part. So tell me about that.
for the most part, they are volunteers. And I think it starts because I've been to lots of conferences, and I'll
Mhm,
bet you have too,
mhm,
where you
yeah,
walk in and maybe there's people greeting you at the door and maybe there's not. But
mhm,
you walk up and get your badge, and after that, you're left feeling like, okay, now what? I mean, if you arrive 2 minutes before it starts, there's no problem. But if you
mhm.
arrive 30, 60 minutes early, 90 minutes early, you're left with this really awkward feeling of, I don't know where to go and I don't know anyone. So we want you to feel like you're in the right place. We want you to feel like you are valued, cheered, and the cheering can go over the top sometimes because our volunteers get a little bit excited.
Well, and if
Um,
you're an introvert, right, that could be a problem.
yeah, and we're aware that not everybody appreciates that, and we're trying to learn how do we make space for the fact that not everybody wants that. And if you're introverted, I don't want that first experience to be so in your face. Like there's a warming up process that needs to take place. But we want you to feel like you belong here. You're
Mhm,
welcome here. There's a good energy about the place, and it gets you excited. It's like, oh, okay. And here's the thing that I want to happen when you walk in the door and by the time you've made it through registration, if you've met or been greeted by at least five
mhm.
people, it's going to set the tone of, hey, people want to talk here. This isn't an event just to come and sit in sessions. This is an event where there's a community being built to the point of your show. Um, Community starts with how you greet someone at the door. So if you're going to a dinner party, the host or hostess can set the tone for the rest of the evening by the way they greet you at the front door. And you've been to lots of parties, I'm sure, and lots of events,
Yeah,
and
I
you
have.
know that that first impression really does matter. So that's why I put a lot of focus on that.
No, I really appreciate that. I appreciated it when I walked in. I'm not an introvert, so I actually kind of enjoyed it. It was pretty fun. I was like, "Yay, I'm here!" I was very excited to be there. So that was the cool thing about it, is walking in. And I know that you are the director of experience. So I was like, I was kind of expecting an experience, and I've heard about the experience. So that was amazing too. And so I was excited to be there. And so here's the thing, you do this huge conference. How many people come to the conference every year?
I mean, we've had as many as 5,000 since the pandemic. It's been more in the 2,000 range.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, so that's amazing. I think that's going to build up. I want to talk about that a little bit too, because I've been noticing that too in my live events. It's taken a little time to build it back, right
Mhm.
after the pandemic. So I do want to talk about that. So put a pin in that for a second. Um, this is a huge event, and not everybody that's listening is going to create that big of an event, so it may not be 2000 or 5000 people, it may be 50 or 20 or 100. So is it still important to have this experiential thing happen even in smaller events?
It does matter. Do you have to do it at the scale that we do? No, but I think the process that you're thinking about is similar,
Hmm.
because you're thinking about these micro experiences that are setting the tone for the overall goal that you have. If
Right.
your event is a sales event and at the end of it, you're going to be selling something, you
Mm.
obviously want people to stay till the end, right?
Right.
Otherwise, you're missing out on something. If your
Yeah.
goal is you're trying to make a big impact, you're trying to help people transform the way they think, the way a skill that they have, they also need to stay till the end, but they need to stay engaged. So,
Mm.
are they going to check out? So, if someone walks into an event and they're not sure they belong, and they
Mhm.
don't feel welcomed or even have a bad experience at
Mm.
the registration, which happens. So,
Yeah,
you probably
I
saw
did.
this happen
I did.
where
Yeah.
you walk in the door, you're warmly greeted, you get to the top of the escalator, now there's a huge line. It's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, man, what's happening here?"
Mhm.
And the line
Like,
took
where do I
15, 20.
go? What booth do I go to? Like, where do I hand yeah.
Yeah, and so we know that things happen.
Mhm.
Things
Yeah.
happen at events. If you can set the tone at the beginning of, "Hey, we're here for you," that way people are gonna give you grace if they
Mm.
feel like you have things organized and that you care about them. They're gonna give you grace when something goes wrong. Because let's just say, set the record straight, there is no such thing as a perfect live event. Never,
No, no,
ever,
this morning we
ever.
were scrambling
It
before
will
this,
not
she's like,
happen.
"Here's the link, and what's the deal?" There's always something wrong, right?
No matter how well you plan, you need to
Mhm.
have contingency plans. The
Yeah.
events that look like they're perfectly run are run well because they have contingency plans for the contingency
Mm.
plans. They
Mhm.
know that something is not going to go the way they thought it was going to go. A PA speaker is going to break, a microphone's going to break. Someone's going to, someone's flight. You're dealing with this right now. Someone's flight gets changed. They can't make it to the
Right.
event. Someone gets sick. They made it to the event, but they're sick in their hotel room. They can't speak. There's all kinds of things that can go wrong that you've got to be ready for. The more that you prepare, the better
Mhm.
you can create a great experience. But I think even if you're doing a 50-person event, the
Mhm.
experience matters, because when someone walks into a room, the environment of that room is going to set the tone of how eager people are to learn and how
Mhm.
set up they are to learn. The detail of, has the presenter rehearsed well? Have you made sure that the AV is working? If they've got videos, I had this happen recently.
Yeah.
If they have videos embedded in their presentation, have you made
Oh.
sure that they're working?
Mhm.
I was not able to at a recent event because it was taking too long to get things set up, and they had assured me, "Oh, they worked when we tested them before." So, like, okay, and then that was a big mistake on my part not to make sure they were working in the room, because it ended up changing the whole presentation, because the first 2 minutes was awkward because we're waiting for my video,
Right,
you
and
know?
what you just said is so important, because that also, I think this is great because this extends also to a speaker. Like, it's not even doesn't even have to be your event. So could you talk a little bit more about what you expect from speakers?
Mm, yeah. I mean, we expect the moon.
Do.
No,
I
a good speaker does a couple of things. They are well prepared
Mhm.
with their content, they've rehearsed it, but more important than that is they've come to understand what the event is, who the people are attending, what your goals are, Cami, as the event organizer. If
Mhm.
I can come support you and the goals that you have, and serve you, a good speaker can tailor their content. They may give the same talk in essence. It may be 80, 90% the same talk, but they might change up some examples. They're able to identify some people in the room. They've shown up early and met some people. I know
Or like
John, go ahead.
they've talked to people ahead of time. You have a group like that too that you put together, right?
Yeah, we have a pre-event. It's not just pre-event, but we have a Facebook group that opens 60 plus days before the event. And
Mm,
some of our best speakers jump in there and ask questions and get to know people and even offer opportunities for them to be featured in their presentation.
it's
You know,
impactful.
and if you know that the speaker has looked at you, you're going to show up to their presentation and you're going to actually say, wow, they talked about me in their presentation. That's
Mhm.
pretty cool.
It
But
is.
the best presenters have gotten to know who the audience is and how to serve them. Typically the speakers that get the lowest scores have not done that research. They've not figured out that, hey, this audience isn't the same as the last event that I was speaking to. It may
Mhm.
sound like on the surface that they're the same, but one event might be for junior beginner marketers or people who are wantrepreneurs, if we might use that phrase.
Want
Um, and then coming to our conference, and in general, these are advanced social media marketers who are working for somebody else's business. They've
Mhm.
got a different set of goals, different set of skills, different set of expectations. They're
Mhm.
looking for you to say, show me the advanced stuff that no one else is talking about. What's the secret stuff that you're curious about is going to happen in the future? Like, give me those insights, as opposed to, here are the ABCs of how to do a LinkedIn Live.
Yeah, no, I think that was one of the things I really noticed about the event that was great. A couple of things to like during the sessions, you had a moderator too, like in each session that would, introduce like kind of hype the speaker, which I thought was amazing because I speak at a lot of conferences and usually they just you show up and you're talking to an AV guy and that's it. You go. You create the experience in the room, but you were very deliberate about creating the experience in the room. I thought that was something I really hadn't seen at very many events ever, except for unless you're a keynote. But even for your non-keynote speakers, you do this.
Yeah, and it's something we've learned over 11 years. We've always had MCs in those rooms, but
Mhm.
I've been to plenty of events like what you described, where either you have to create your own energy,
Yep.
which I would rather do than what I'm about to describe, where the event organizer seems to have said, grabbed a card, said,
Mhm.
okay, Sally, hey, come here. Would you mind going and reading this before this
Mhm.
session starts?
Oh, yeah, that too. I've
Um,
had that too.
hey, everybody. Oh, no, it'd be more like this.
Mhm.
Phil Mershon, which is
They
a
read your bio.
mispronunciation of my name, is the director of experience for, what is this? Social, and you're like, please just stop. Let me come up and introduce myself. But what we've learned is, if you can get an MC, and we'll call them MCs, and we try to get professional MCs
Mhm.
into that spot to say,
Yeah,
hey,
yes.
this is an event that's happening in this room, like just like our keynote. And we are a large enough event, you can do this. If your
Mhm.
breakouts are for 10 or 20 people, you may not want to go to this trouble. But we're saying, look, people are here. This is part of the experience. We want people to feel connected. We want that community. We're talking all about community today.
Mhm.
We want the community to extend here. This isn't just a place that you come sit passively and absorb. So 5-10 minutes before the session, the MCs, their goal is to start to engage the people in the room and say, hey, the people next to you might be the very people that you came to meet. And I believe in the power of serendipity. And so if you open your mouth and say hi, there's going to be someone in your sphere of connection that is the person that you came to meet. But if you don't ever talk to anyone, you're not going to find them. And so the MC's goal is to, yes, build the energy so that when you
Mhm.
as the speaker step on stage, that the audience is ready. That's part of it. But the other part is to get the audience connected to each other, saying, look,
And that
came
definitely
all
happens.
this
Yeah.
way. You didn't travel 1,000 miles from Houston to San
Mhm.
Diego just to sit and listen to sessions you could have watched on YouTube. You came because you wanted to meet people, you wanted to have conversations that are going to help you be a better marketer, a better
Mhm.
person, et cetera, et cetera. So the MCs, whichever room you're in, is part of this, the secret sauce of, I call it brick and mortar. I don't think you probably
Mhm.
saw that in the book.
Yeah.
It's, they're
Yeah.
part of the mortar. When you're building a wall, if you don't have solid mortar, the wall is going to fall down. You don't see the MCs advertised on a website,
Mhm.
but they are a critical piece of making the event successful.
Well, and they do get something out of it too, because a lot of people get to know who they are and love what they do. It gives them a patina, and you put them there. And what I love too about what you did with social media and marketing world is before we came, you were preparing the audience even then. So it's all same thing. You've got the MCs, and beforehand you're preparing the audience to come and to be ready. And one of the things that you asked us is, what is your number one goal for
Mm.
being here? And it's like, if you don't have intention, you're not going to get anything out of the conference. And that's one of the things you talk about a lot in the book and other places, is really about how 90% of what we learn is going to be forgotten. I don't know if it's 80 or 90, it's high.
It's
And so talk
90.
about that.
Yeah, and I thought, so there's a German psychologist who said, back in the 1800s, that within 30 days we forget 90% of what we learn. I was talking to Tom Martin yesterday, who does a lot of training of speakers in revising their PowerPoint decks to be more
Mhm,
scientifically impactful.
mhm,
And he said there's research that's come out that says immediately following a session, immediately following, even only a 10-minute session, people have already forgotten 50% of what they just heard. And he said within a day, it's 75%. And they found within, I think he said, as soon as 2 days, it's up to 90%. So the data, anywhere from 2 to 30 days, people have already forgotten 90%. It makes sense to me in our data saturated
mhm,
culture that it would be faster than 30 days that we've forgotten, unless, and this is the big key,
mhm,
unless the speaker has done specific things to
mhm,
create memory hooks. So there's a
mhm,
lot of things you can do as a presenter in the way that you structure your talk to make it more memorable and to
okay.
make it easier for people to digest it, presenting in different formats, creating different hooks along the way, doing
Mhm,
callbacks, giving people a chance to kinesthetically get engaged with it, doing something with it. All of these kinds of things can help make it more memorable.
mhm,
But the typical presentation is going to be forgotten within a couple of days. And the
mhm.
parts they remember are probably not even the parts you want them to remember.
Right. Well, and I'll give you an example. The one that I remember the most is Richard Bliss,
Mm,
because he was talking about LinkedIn, and he unveiled the research study that they did on LinkedIn, which was
right.
like mind blowing to start with, but also could have been easily like, it would have been over my head, and kind of, it could have
Mm,
been like that. But that's not what he did. He did exactly what you said. He had somebody in the room. He demonstrated how it worked. Like he said, he had somebody in the room make a post and do it in the way that he said that was the best way to do it. And then he had people go and comment on her post. So he gave out a LinkedIn profile for somebody in the room, and everybody in the room went and followed this person, commented on this person's post, which was like
right.
amazing for that person, right? And
Yeah.
then it showed, and then he went and did his whole speech, and at the end he came back and looked at what was the results, like what were the the statistics or the analytics on that particular post. It was mind blowing. It's like, this actually works, because and then I actually took that, turned it into a live stream for my audience here, and that became one of my most popular live streams probably in the last couple of months. I mean, you just
Yeah.
that had the hook for me, that got me and made me think about it and changed the way I do things, to be honest.
Yeah. Look at a couple things he did there. One
Mhm,
is he got that
mhm,
audience member participating. Now,
mhm,
who knows if he got them in advance? He probably did.
mhm.
Um, that person is highly invested. He
Yeah.
got you to watch an experiment that everybody's interested. Okay, we're testing this very thing, right?
Mhm,
Um, yeah, exactly. That live stream was informative. He tested it. He gave you the results. Now I know so many people that went and tried it and talked about it. I
mhm,
wasn't in that session, but I saw so many people talking about that tactic that I went and tried it before I watched his session. Then I went and watched his session and got even more ideas. And then
mhm,
I heard about all the knowledge bombs he dropped in the hallway that weren't
Mhm.
on anyone's recordings that were
No,
even extra
I
valuable.
stood in that hallway and listened to him because, well, I also know Richard. He's a friend of mine, but I was just like mind blown, truly.
Well, and then his daughter won that contest at the karaoke night, which that's a whole different story. But
Yeah, so I did the karaoke night too. So that's another piece of experience. It was super fun. Um, so yeah, Anne says she took these best practices that I did in my live stream, and she's been
mm,
using it in her own LinkedIn. So what Richard did had me do some content that then has come to my audience. So it like trickles down, right? I feel like why did I go to social media marketing world? Number one reason was to meet people. Like I always put people at the front of why I go to an event.
yeah,
Not everybody does. I think some people come to like solve certain problems for themselves, but I
yeah.
love that you had us set an intention up front. So speaking of hooks, in your book there's a really cool hook that makes me remember your book a lot, which is
Mm,
at the end of every chapter you have your bread bites.
okay.
So I know you called them that, and we talked about why at the beginning, but could you explain what the bread bites are and why they're important fabric for the book?
Well, I think my favorite books will end the chapter not with a recap, but with
Mhm,
something to do to internalize something in the chapter. So
mhm,
the bread bite is taking you a little bit deeper. So it's a question, it's a prompt, it's an activity, it's a thought to say, hey, we've just talked about
mhm.
subject X, community building, since we're talking about community building. Although, by the way, that chapter didn't end up in the book. If you want to show the link, I make that chapter available for free on my site because I forgot to put it in and wrote it after the book was done. But anyway, community is
Fantastic.
let's just say we're talking about community, and I laid out the theory, laid out some stories, but now here's a chance to go deeper. So it's really just that. It's here's a little extra bite to internalize it the same way that we were talking about in a presentation. Like a great presentation gives you something practical that you're going to do now or immediately after it to
Mhm,
internalize it. Because if you do that, you did it in the hallway.
mhm,
I think it sounds like
mhm.
I know people who tried it on site before they left. They got results. They're like, okay, I'm sold. Like,
It
I'm
was
doing
easy
this.
to get sold on that. It was like a very, very good, demonstration. The way he did that was I took notes on that as a speaker. So that's the other thing I loved about being there is, like, looking at how everybody else did it, and also sometimes how, there were some really good speakers, but they maybe gave way too much information sometimes,
Yeah,
and that
that's
I took
tempting.
note of as well.
It's
By the
so
way, there's the bonus
tempting. Yeah, if
paragraph.
you go to that site, all I ask for is an email, and you can unsubscribe immediately if you want to, but you'll get the free chapter all about how to build community at events. Yeah, I think speakers are tempted, and I do the same thing. It's easy to think more is better, and I think less is more.
Yeah,
That'll take you right there.
yeah, there
That's how
it
it
is.
works. So, yeah, less is more is a principle from music that I've picked
Mhm.
up
Yeah.
that, I'm a jazz saxophonist, and it's tempting when I'm playing jazz to think I need to play all the notes and I need to play everything. But great jazz and great music and great writing comes because there's white space. If you and I spoke nonstop at
Mhm.
120 words a minute or whatever the normal speaking pace is, and didn't ever pause to take a breath or let someone sink in, there's not a chance for people to digest what we just said. So good speakers know how to put a dramatic pause in. They know what's a digestible amount of content, and have
Mhm.
they put enough story in there? Like maybe you did just share five, salient points one after another, then put a pause in and tell a story that allows people to process it, and whatever the right cadence is. There's not like a magical formula for this,
Mhm.
but there is a formula that you need to give pause. You need to create that white space for people to internalize, and you need to give them a chance to try it. It may not be possible to try it in the room right now, but say, I want you to go in the hallway. And if you tag me, use this hashtag or
Mhm.
tag me when you try it, then I will come look at it, and that's something that Richard did. I
Mhm.
noticed that he went and commented anytime somebody
Mhm.
commented or, wrote a post about what he taught in that session. He was in there within hours commenting and saying something extra. He wasn't just saying thank you for the
Mm.
notice. He added some extra value. Like he was paying attention and continuing to teach, which that's next level. Like I don't know very many speakers that do that. And there's a reason he was one of our top rated speakers because he is truly next level in that way.
He is, and I actually love to do that too. That is actually 100% what I do in my speeches too, because I want to interact. Because afterwards, I mean, what's the point of going and speaking somewhere if you don't make the connections with the people? That's
Mm,
my feeling as a speaker. Like there has to be those connections with those people that come together, and then you can nurture those over time. You know, you can have like friendships, and you can have collaborations, and you can have all the things that they do. So, and Anne, you're being so good today. She says she's done that when she has a personal branding workshop. She asks people to record a short video about what they've learned and post it on LinkedIn and tag me. It's a way for me to show how well video does on LinkedIn. And it's a way for them to share a post about themselves. And it's so good because
yeah,
if you can make something be about the people that you're trying to reach, not
yeah,
about you. And I think
yeah,
that's what you do so brilliantly at the
yeah,
conference.
yeah. I think our best speakers were doing that throughout, and some of them,
Mhm,
asked for coaching from me. And so
mhm,
I suggested that, like,
mhm,
give them something they can work on during your session that they can do after, and you can give feedback. And those are the sessions that got the best ratings, but not just the best ratings, because it's,
mhm.
the ratings are good for me and good for the speaker.
Yeah.
But what's good for the audience is you gave them something to work on that matters. That tip on a text-based post on LinkedIn tends to work better. Or Jara Bean talking about, reels on Instagram. Here are the formulas for how to write a great reel. Like she walked that through in the
Mhm.
session and gave
You
people the
did. I
template
was
so
on
that
that
they
one too.
could.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that was brilliant.
it
And
was.
I suggested that she do something, but she came up with the something that served the audience and they loved it.
Mhm.
And she got great scores as a result, but I think she endeared people to her as well.
Yeah, you walking away with something that you can actually put into practice right away. I think especially for educational type of events, this is like hugely important.
Yep.
Um, Let me just kind of move away from that part, the educational side, to the other parts of experience because you don't just do education at these events. So you have some really great philosophies around white space, around rest, around. Could you talk a little bit about what goes around an event that isn't just the education? I know that's a big topic, but
Yeah, well, there's several things that come to mind. Since this is all about community, I think the way that you go about building community and relationships is really important to design well.
mhm,
So that does start pre-event, as we've already talked about.
mhm.
Um, you know, especially for introverts, but I think really for anyone, particularly when you're going to a larger
Yes,
event. If
yeah,
you're going for the first time and you already have met some people and you have plans on the calendar to meet them within the first 24 hours, it gives you a much greater sense of confidence of, okay, I'm going to meet someone. Or something we did this year, which I've never done before, which I will now forever do, is we did a
oh,
meetup for first timers.
yes,
We've
I
done
went
some
to it. I
things.
went to it. It was so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't very well organized, but
No, it was
but
everything just kinda that was a little bit weird because we came in and we're like, "What are we supposed to do? Where are we supposed to
yeah,
go?"
no,
Well,
it
that needs a
was
little work, but it
but it was a first time,
right.
and we didn't know if anyone would show up. We had no idea hundreds of people would show up. So, we were pleasantly surprised and but unprepared for that. But I think what it did is, hey, if you're already in town and this is your first
Right,
time, we know that you probably are feeling like, hey, I need to connect with some other people. And so the people in the
for
room,
sure.
their goal was to try to say, hey, we're going to introduce you to 5 people. Hopefully, at
Uh-huh.
least one of them becomes a conference partner, companion, buddy, whatever you want to call
Right.
it, someone that you're going to
Yeah.
go to sessions with and touch base with and maybe learn with or, divide and conquer. So I
Mhm.
think one of our goals is to help you feel like you have some friends because
Mm,
it's a lot
yeah.
easier to learn when you feel like you're in a community than if you're
Mhm.
alone. And,
It's so true.
go ahead.
No, it's so true. I mean, so I did find people there that I met, and then even if we didn't do things together, we saw each other in the hall, and we kept talking to each other throughout the time. Luckily, I did know people there already, just from my past, because I've been in this space for like ever. I just hadn't come to your conference yet. So I've corrected that. I'm coming back next year. I already bought my ticket. But um, the thing is that it was like really good to like expand your circle. And like I felt like it was like you'd see somebody in the hall and say, "Hey, like how are you doing? How's it going for you?" It just felt like you created that space for us to know each other, which I thought was fantastic.
And that's the point. So we try to create the space, we try to create the mechanisms. Um, that Facebook group is one of them. We have
Mhm.
people that their sole job is to help connect people. So, in the grand scheme of how people are wired and designed, some people are super connectors. And this is a word from
Mhm.
Malcolm Gladwell, and I'm not sure
Yeah.
where he got it from. But some people just love to meet someone and are instantly thinking about who else should this person know.
Mm.
Some people can't
Yeah.
help but say, "Cammy, you need to meet Sally because Sally also has a digital agency, and you
Mm.
guys are similar in this way. You both love to build community. You're both speakers. I think you guys would enjoy meeting each other. Would you mind if I introduced you?"
You'll
I
have to do
make
that
that.
after this thing. I don't know her.
I don't know Sally. I just made her up, but
Okay. Whoever Sally is, I need to know you.
But I do know Karen, and you do need to meet Karen, and she does fit that description. So that's a whole different story. Um, but they're so super connectors. We call them the connections crew. Their
Okay.
job is to help people. Then there's activity-based connecting,
Mhm.
and events do different things, but we have table talks, others do round tables, birds of a feather. There's lots of different names, but getting people into smaller groups for conversation. Because I think for
Mhm.
most of us, working a 2,000 person room is daunting. But
Yeah.
if you're in a space where there's 8, 10, 15 people, that doesn't feel as overwhelming. And
Mhm.
so trying to get people into a space where you're likely to want to talk to everybody in this room anyway. And
Mm.
so it increases the chances that you're going to find people that will lead to good conversations. Cause I think that's one of the parts of an event that's super important. And people tell us that too. Like, why are you coming to the event? Content, then community. And fun is way down the list. Even though
Yeah.
everyone loves to have fun, that's not why they're coming.
No.
They certainly can't tell the boss that's why they're coming.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's not really the reason. Like, you wanna have fun while you're there, but it's just a thing. I mean, so I will tell you that you do have a lot of fun baked in. Lots of, you're a musician, as I am. So, you do a lot of musical things, which really was appealing to me because I'm a musician as well.
Hmm.
But you have, local groups come in and sing. You have people, come in and do different acts. You yourself got up and did a, saxophone, kind of duet and solo with whatever
Mhm.
with the group, kind of
Mhm.
a little band, which was really fun.
Yep.
We had the karaoke night, which was like insane because the karaoke band plays like it's a real band. It's not like just playing background
Yeah.
music and you say what song you want to sing, and it's hard to get onto the karaoke stage. I did manage to do
Everyone
that
wants to do
somehow.
it. Yeah.
No, I did, and I was so excited to do it, because I am a musician and I am a singer, so it was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this." And, it was super cool because, after I was done, like, so many people came and said, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea you could sing," like, "Ah, ah, ah, ah," including your boss. He was like, "What? You can sing?" Like, "What?"
What did you sing?
So,
What song did you sing?
I sang, what did I sing? I sang you're gonna now I don't remember. Sorry. Yeah. I'll come to it in a second. It'll come to me in a second. Old person's brain. But it was really fun to do it. Fleetwood Mac. It was a Fleetwood Mac song. But anyway, so it was super fun because you were able to get up there and do something. And then also what I did is I also hyped everyone else. So I stood in front of the stage and
Mm.
I recorded every single person that sang that
Oh,
night.
nice.
I
Wow.
put it and
That's awesome.
I put it in the Facebook group,
I didn't know you did that. That's
thereafter.
amazing.
Yeah, so I have video of every single one, and I put them all together, and it's in the Facebook group, like a compilated video,
So did
and,
you catch the one where the gals wrote the new version of "Oops, I Did It Again"?
yes, I think so. Mhm, yeah.
That
Well,
was fun. 'Cause I don't know if you heard the story behind that.
no.
So Sarah Scott
Yeah.
owns a digital agency, and she also like does a lot of production for podcasters.
Yeah.
And she came to me and said, "Phil, would you mind if I did like a spoof or a parody at the karaoke night on a '90s song?" Because the theme was '90s, and I said, that sounds like a lot of fun. Do you mind if I help you? Because I love writing lyrics
Mhm.
for stuff like that.
Yeah,
And then we
no.
found another gal who was interested, and so we picked Britney Spears' song "Oops, I Did It Again," which is technically not a '90s song because it was written in
Mhm.
2000.
Yeah,
But
I
we're
was
like,
gonna
it's close enough. But we totally rewrote it for social media marketers, and unfortunately, it wasn't as obvious because the lyrics were hard to hear over the band, and we wish we'd have put them up on
Yeah,
the screen. But it
yeah.
was like, "Oops, I did it again. I called you first name," things like that.
Oh, I guess I didn't really catch it either because you it was hard to hear.
Yeah,
But I do have the
I
video. If
asked
I
them
can
if
dig mhm, if
sorry?
I can dig it up if I dig I'll dig it up and send it to you.
Well, and I challenged them to create a version of it where we could see the lyrics, but,
Mhm.
they both ran out of time and
Yeah,
there's nothing
it's a
in
lot.
it for them. But I think the spirit of that is we do try to create a lot of different moments. Music, I
Mhm,
think, is an important element, an event. It's something that's unique about us because I am a musician
mhm.
and we have just leaned into it over the
Yeah,
years. And we,
sure.
for
Own
4
it.
years, we did what were called industrial musicals, which is
Oh,
where you do
interesting.
a musical
Yeah,
based on a topic. I mean, it's a whole brand to do industrial musicals where large
yeah,
companies and conferences would hire Broadway musicians to come in, do bathtub musicals basically. We
that's
didn't do that.
so my
We did
son is
like short little spoofs where we
yeah,
took a theme like networking and said, okay, let's take Wizard of Oz and let's do a short little, 10 to 15-minute musical talking about the journey of networking at conferences. And, the Tin Man and the Lion and the Scarecrow all represented different types of people in their
yeah,
networking approach. And here's Dorothy walking along, and she comes to the wizard, and the wizard opens up all the magic of networking, and then it becomes this story about how to network at the conference. But it was like this fun moment that no one's expecting. But the reason we did it is because look, we've got all these amazingly talented people who in a different life were professional performers, some of whom
yeah,
performed on Broadway,
yeah.
opera stages, other stages, and said, "We've got an opportunity here." And our lyricist, she actually has written for Broadway musicals, and her
That's
brother
so cool.
produces on Broadway or off Broadway.
So
And
cool.
so we're like, we've got an opportunity here to do something that, you know, at least no other marketing event has ever done. Certainly, other conferences have done. And so it's more about like finding what's your company or your event identity.
Mm,
But I think practically speaking, music does something else. And I'll get to this because I think this is something that every event has to think about. Music sets a tone. And
mhm.
so if you're, I was talking to a new friend who is a punk rock label owner. He's a longtime aficionado of punk rock. And
Mm,
if you walked into my event and you're like in our demographic of who we're trying to reach, and you
yeah.
heard punk rock when you walked through the
Oh,
door,
yeah.
it would be it would startle you, and you'd probably wonder, am I in the right place? If it was used at the right moment, let's
Mhm,
say it took a familiar song,
mhm.
"Take Me Home, Country Roads," okay,
Oh,
something
yeah.
that probably everyone knows, and it started out as the song that you know, but then it
Mhm,
moved into this kind of edgy, punky kinda thing. It would get your attention,
mhm,
and it would probably make you wonder what's going on, and that might be exactly what you want to happen right before a keynote that's gonna introduce a thought that is gonna take you to a different paradigm. So, music can make you comfortable. It can also intentionally make you uncomfortable. Music
interesting.
can help you feel like you belong. So if you didn't notice this probably, but the songs played when you arrived at the conference,
Mhm,
those were songs meant to help you feel like, "Okay, this is my music. These are my people." It
mhm.
was familiar. It
Familiar
wasn't
music.
like foreign. We want you to feel like, "Hey, I belong here. It's cool that there's live music or recorded music being played,
Mhm.
and it's stuff that, yeah, I know those songs. They clearly understand the audience that's walking in the door. We want that feeling, but there
Mhm.
is a place for music that makes you feel like, something is just a little off, and but that requires intentionality. And I
Yeah.
think, and this guy I was talking to said, when you walk into the conference room itself, you're setting a tone for everything that's about to happen. And it's different from what's happening in the hallway.
Yeah.
And you want to be thoughtful about, how are you preparing people? Is the music you're playing going to distract them from what's
Mm.
happening? Or is
Yeah.
it going to prepare them? Is it going to complement? Is it going to put them to sleep? If you're asking them to have a moment of reflection, let's say a bread bite moment,
Mhm.
to use
Yeah,
that word
that's good.
in
Yeah.
this session, you want the right kind of music. You don't want to play music at that point that has lyrics to it. You want it to be music that's going to just be background noise that sets them into a place of focus for a couple of minutes. Um, Play the wrong music, people's minds are going to go to the music and not to the moment. And so,
Mm.
and if you're doing this for an audience of musicians, good luck, because
Well,
everything you
I think
play,
it
they're
gets a little
probably going
harder.
to be noticing.
It gets a little harder. By the way, it was Landslide. I don't know why I couldn't come up with it at that moment, but it was Landslide. So
Gotcha.
that I sang. So yeah, I mean, it it was really good that way. I really felt like there was like carefully crafted moments, and I have learned a lot from today's meeting. I think we should probably kind of wrap it up with what
Sure.
would be like the top 3 or 4 tips, whatever it is you usually talk about, that you would give to somebody who's thinking about like, how can I plus up my events? How can I do that? And maybe we can leave them with that.
One of my number one tips is, think through your event sequentially, going step by step from a moment of arrival to departure and key moments in between. Not every moment. The book by Chip and Dan Heath, Power of Moments, says that all moments aren't created equally.
Mhm.
So get to know which moments matter. It might be those keynotes, it might be a particular, break that you've got in the event, whatever it is. Think carefully about those moments and craft those moments so that they are really, really good. And in the midst of that, ask yourself, what could go wrong that would undermine the effectiveness of the event, and have solutions in place for those. You don't need to solve every problem at the event. You need to
Mhm.
solve the problems that are going to most highly impact the event. You want to solve every problem, of course, but
Right. But you're
you've
one
only
person
have so
or
much
two.
time. So that would be my number one tip.
Mhm.
My number two tip is a new idea that I've never said out loud before, but I was talking to a vocal coach this morning,
Mhm.
and she said, "Did you know that Taylor Swift and Rihanna and all these most amazing vocalists in the world have a vocal coach?" And I think if you're running an event, you need an event coach. Don't be afraid. Like, if the top people in the world in their craft, the top violinist, the top vocalist, the top whatever, tennis players, they all have coaches. If you're an event producer, don't be afraid to hire a coach. You as a business owner probably have a coach. Am I right,
I do,
Kimmy?
100%. Yes.
Yeah. So if you're running an event, don't be afraid to hire a coach. And I'm available if you need one, but that's
Yay!
not my main point. Um, Number three, definitely coach your speakers.
Mhm.
Like, don't be afraid to help your speakers serve your audience. I did a LinkedIn post recently and asked professional speakers what they most appreciate about conferences. And
Mhm.
almost every one of them said, in one way or another, help me serve your audience. Do a
Yeah.
poll of your audience and give me the data. Give me a write up of who the people are and what the questions are that they're asking. Give me stories so that I can tailor what I'm giving to them to best serve you and your audience. They said, whether that's a video, a PDF, a conversation, serve your speakers by
Mhm.
helping them serve your audience. A lot of organizations apparently don't do that. which surprises me. On the flip side, as an organizer, I make that available. If you're a speaker, take advantage of that. Don't miss out on that. We have one of our speakers, I won't name who it is, who totally missed the mark one year because this person, won't even give the gender away, this person did not take note of who the audience was that was coming to the event. So they gave a speech that worked really well at another conference, top rated, came to ours, and it was the second lowest session at the event. And this person was remorseful after the event and apologized. And we walked through what happened, and they realized, oh, I didn't know that your audience was completely different. If you'll give me another chance, I will revise what I do and I will serve your audience. So if you're a speaker, take advantage of talking to the event organizer. You need to know your audience well enough that you can serve the speaker in that way. And that's not easy. It sounds like super easy. It's not. And if you're in your first year, you might have no clue. But after a while, you will get a clue, and it will make your event better the more informed you can be. Those would be probably 3 things I'd recommend.
I love those 3 things. They're so good. They're so good. I'm definitely taking all of them and like looking at my own events and looking at that. So thanks for coaching me today. One of the things I will say is that I was just on a panel the other day for the Page Society. I don't know if you know who they are, but Page Society is like a big PR organization. They do corporate communications, that kind of stuff. You have to be like the CEO of the company to be a member. But afterwards, we asked for the feedback. And she didn't just automatically give it to us, but we asked for it because it's like really helpful to know if we hit the mark or not, right? And what parts we got. So as a speaker, ask. If they don't give it to you, ask for the feedback, because even if it's negative, it really helps. This wasn't, thank goodness, but if it's negative, it can really help to craft your thing. One last thing I'm going to ask for the people who are aspiring speakers at Social Media Marketing World: how do you get on your radar to be considered to be a speaker at Social Media Marketing World? What does that take?
Social Media Marketing World is probably different than almost every other conference because so many people want to speak at our event. Mike actually discovers people in the wild. So directly pitching will not get you anywhere. Here's what I would recommend. If you are aspiring to speak at the conference, number 1, be really good at your craft. Get on podcasts, get on stages at other conferences, and get really good and know what your niche is. Like for us, our conference is all about equipping marketers in general, but social media marketers in specific. We are broader than just social media because, let's be honest, social media is just part of marketing today. We really are serving digital marketers more broadly, but we're looking for people who are excellent, who can give advanced strategies and tactics. So you need to know what your niche is within that. If you're a broad generalist and your agency or your talks are serving beginner marketers or even beginner to intermediate, it's probably not going to be the best fit for us. So you need to know that you can deliver industry setting insights that are for leading marketers, people who are trying to stay on the leading edge. And prove that by going on other people's podcasts, getting on other people's shows, producing content of your own. If you're doing that, Mike's going to find you. It's not just Mike. He's got a team of people that are always constantly on the lookout. You will be found. We're always looking for new voices. You'll find at least 50% of the speakers are new every year. So you will be discovered. That's what I tell everyone who asks me privately. That's what I'll say publicly.
Yeah, I know people ask this question all the time, so that's why I'm asking it. I think it's a really important thing to hear for people that are looking to be a part of your event, because it is a big event. It's an event that is coveted, I think, by speakers, which I think is really an testament to you, like, and what the work you have done, and also Mike has done to grow this and make it excellent. And make it excellent. So I really, really appreciate you being on here today. Those of us who run events look up to you, and your book is amazing. If you do nothing else, please buy the book. Let me pull up the banner so you can go grab it. But yes, thank you for pulling up the book for me. So Get Unforgettable. I actually had 2 copies. I gave 1 copy away at Social Media Breakfast of Houston. which is a event that I've run for 15 years. By the way, tomorrow is our 15th anniversary birthday. So we're having a birthday bash celebration tomorrow and talking about how to grow a community there too. So if you're into this community topic, come back here tomorrow. We're going to be live streaming. We do it live and in person and live streaming at the same time. It's one of the things we do that's different. So we would love to have you no matter where you are. So if you're not in Houston, but we'd love to have you there. And again, like Phil, thank you so much for your time today. And please buy Phil's book. If you have any other questions, leave them in the comments. We'll make sure that it gets back. Tag Phil. I know he's next level, so he will probably respond to you. So definitely do that. And yeah, anything else you want to leave? Any like final words?
I'm going to leave a final note. Sorry, totally improvising in the moment. But yes, yeah, thanks for having me on today. I hope people do reach out. Glad to help.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we'll talk to you guys very soon. Take care.
All right.